Hello everybody, I'm Ghyslyn and I'm going to do a replay analysis here of a builder that I did in a Terran vs. Terran on the ladder. In this game I did a 1-Rex expand into a Heavy Marine style, which I feel is really good on a really good build for Terran vs. Terran, especially on larger maps. It's a very macro-oriented build and for the most part it's very safe, so we'll see how this game went. So, right at the start of the game, spawn here on Shakura's Plateau against a ladder Terran called Socrates, or Socrates. Socrates if you were Keanu Reeves. And everything starts out simply enough. So for most of the time when I do a 1-Rex expand, I like to get my barracks at the ramp itself and then build the second supply depot at 14 supply, get it up to 100 hit points, and then send that same SCV out to scout. In this case, since it's Terran vs. Terran, I decided to just build the supply depot. I decided to build the supply depot after the barracks was complete, in order to leave the possibility, my opponent to imagine the possibility that there's possibly Macarax or something like that that he needs to worry about. So, I send the SCV scout in. The biggest thing that I'm looking for when I am sending the scout out, if he doesn't have a wallop, I want to see whether or not he has gas. But in this case he does have a wallop. The big thing that I'm looking for is whether or not he builds a marine or goes straight into tech lab. And also if he builds a marine, if he goes into tech lab after that or not. Sometimes you can see tech lab, which will immediately point you to a Reaper timing, in which case you can leave two marines in the back of your base, while leaving the rest to defend your natural. In this case I scouted just a regular wall, wall timing standard because my CV was there kind of late, so I don't really have a great idea of what he's doing, but I do know that he's not opening Reapers, so I don't need to worry about that yet. So you can get the command center at 18 supply, and then at around 20 or 21 supply, as soon as you've got 150 minerals saved up without stopping marine production or SCV production, you can start on your second barracks. What I like about this build is that the SCV that I send out to start the second barracks is the SCV that I'll be using for every important building from now on. After starting the second barracks, you can double gas as well, since you will need that gas in order to tech up. Make sure that your marines at the front of your natural are well spread. I like building my command center straight into the natural, especially in Terran vs. Terran, because I'm just as likely to hold this position as I am to hold this one with the marines. As soon as your gases are up, make sure that you saturate them. Both gases are saturated right away. And as soon as the second barracks is done, you want to get a tech lab on it, since you'll want to be starting combat shields as soon as possible. That's their first major gas investment. With the same SCV that finished that barracks, you can start your third barracks as well. So because we're getting one barracks after the other rather than both at the same time, we're able to get our double gas slightly earlier than we would with a standard 1-Rex expand, which would get both barracks at 22 supply and then both gases at 24 supply. In this case, usually it ends up being 21 supply for the first barracks, and then both gases at 22 supply. And then the third racks here ends up coming in the late 20s for supply. Start combat shield first, before stim. Reason being, a combat shield marine always wins against a stim marine. So if he comes with a stim timing and you've got combat shields, you'll win. It's kind of scary to see him stimmed and coming in, but just keep your marines fighting and you'll be good. One thing though, if you do scout that he's going for gas first build, you can always opt to go for stim first. This is all on player preference, and a lot of it depends on the league you're in. In a higher league, your opponent is more likely to be able to kite you with banshees. If that is often a problem for you when you go for combat shield marines, where he'll just keep kiting your marines and keep kiting them properly until your marine count is very low, then I would recommend that you go for a stim first, since you'll be able to stim in and hit the banshees. Problem with that though is if he follows it up with a 1-1-1 push with marines and tanks, you're going to have a bit of a harder time in that battle, since you will be forced to engage only once. Um, But if you are in a league, or if Banshees kiting your Marines isn't a major problem for you, then going combat shields first is fine. Since let's say there's a Banshee over here, I can send my Marine straight towards the Banshee, and as soon as it's in position, scan and kill it. Also, note that if you have combat shields, that adds one more shot to the Banshee to kill a Marine. So instead of 2 shots, it'll take 3 shots for a Banshee to kill a Marine, so it does increase the survivability of your Marines a bit. The stim first only gives you a slightly better chance of catching it and killing it right away. So remember what I said about the the SCV building the second barracks. You'll be using that same SCV in order to build all the important structures from now on. You get your another SCV in order to build your supply depots. Start your next supply depot at around 32 supply. That's the important one. Notice that this entire time I've only been running off of 2 supply depots. So at around 32 supply, you want to start your next supply depot. You can use that same SCV to build every supply depot after that. So it becomes pretty easy to manage the macro of this build since you're only really using 2 SCVs to build everything. Make sure that you're never late with the supply depots for this SCV though, since technically you can produce slightly faster than you can produce supply depots. So every second that you lose building a supply depot is a second that you lose in overall production. You're not overproducing supply depots as you would with most builds. As soon as your third barracks is complete, make sure that you add a reactor on it as well. Also, as soon as you started your tech lab, you can start a reactor on your main barracks as well. So I'll back up a bit just so you can see that. Start the tech lab, and after I start the tech lab, as soon as the next marine is complete, I'll start a reactor on that same barracks. Boom, there you go.
Add-on complete.
So everything else is playing standard. As soon as this barracks is complete, we'll get a reactor out. You can also start your engineering bay right away. You get a blind engineering bay, which will help you against any Banshee timings, but also gets you +1 attack very quickly. A lot of Terran vs. Terran, especially in North America at this point, a lot of the metagame comes down to fast expands into marine timings. And a lot of games are decided with that first engagement. So you want to get yourself every little advantage you can get for that. That's why you get combat shields first, then you get stim. We're going to go with reactored starports in this game. Reactored starport with reactored medevacs. And we're also going to get the engineering bay with a quick +1. If you have all of these factors while your opponent, is missing any of these factors, if he got a stim late, or if he doesn't have +1, if he doesn't have medevacs, things like that, you might just go in, stim, and steamroll him. Also, around this point in the game, around 6 minutes and 20 seconds, so the last mule energy that I had, you can opt, depending on your level of comfort, to scan your opponent's base at this time. This will almost always point out whether or not he's going for a 1-1-1, one base play, or if he's going for a fast expand or anything like that. It's the perfect time to scan the Terran, because this is the point where you'd see whether or not he's getting Cloak Banshees. As well, you probably see whether or not he's getting a Tech Lab on his factory, so if he's just going Cloak Banshees, or if he's clearly going complete 1-1-1. If you see he's upgrading Cloak while getting the Tech Lab, then you need to prepare defensively and get your bunker up, and also get a bit of map control. The main reason for getting map control with this build is because your marine count, or your overall army count, is going to be relatively low, so you want to catch him unsieged. My main advice for you, if you're getting 1-1-1 all in, and you see that he's got 2 siege tanks and a few marines coming across the map, when he's on his way, grab a bunch of SCVs, send them in front of your marines, and attack him in the open well before he sieges up. Odds are he won't be watching, he'll be in a column formation, you'll be able to catch him off guard and just destroy him well before he gets to your base, while maintaining the economic lead you have from the fast expand. Keep that in mind. Whenever you fast expand against your opponent, you can always lose a decent amount of SCVs before you're technically behind in economy. So you can always sacrifice SCVs in order to stay alive.
Add-on complete.
In this case, I opted not to go for the scan, and instead just rely on the micro of the moment to see how I can hold off any sort of attack he does. Another thing to note, every supply depot that I'm building at the edge of my base. Reason for this is I want full base awareness. If you look at the minimap, you'll notice I have decent awareness of every little corner in my base, so if he does any drop action, which we see here he's doing right now, I'll notice it right away. As a result, I'll react to it right away as well,
Base is
or as
under
soon as I
attack.
spot it on my minimap. It helps that he's attacking the supply depot, so it'll give you that alert as well. As soon as the engineering bay is complete, start +1 attack, and also you want to start your factory at the same time, since you will have about 200 gas saved up at this point, if you've been macroing properly. One important timing to never forget, but it'll happen often, is your stim timing. Make sure to keep an eye on the combat shields, see when it's done, and as soon as that completes, start your stim right away, since often games are decided by somebody who forgot stim by about 5 seconds. Since you'll have the same amount of Marines, same amount of medevacs in the middle of the map meeting each other. One guy stims, one guy doesn't, and one guy steamrolls the other. Start your factory right
Base
away.
is under.
Another tip with the SCV that's built in the factory, unlike most of the time when you're building a building, this is also extremely important in turn versus Protoss, don't rally it back to your minerals, instead rally it right next to the factory, so that then, excuse me, if you forget about it, you're going to have an idle SCV there, and then when you jump to it, you'll see, oh, it's right by the naked factory. So you know, start your start your starport right away, and start your reactor right away as well. So here, I notice that he's doing a Marine Hellion drop. I know that with a Marine Hellion drop, his army is also going to be slightly stronger than mine. If we check right here, I've got 10 Marines here, one more about to pop, two more about to pop here. So I'm going to have about 14 Marines total. He has, let's see, he has 6 Marines, a medevac, and 3 Hellions. So if I just went in and A-moved him, there's a decent possibility that he would win. I also know that he only got this amount of units off of one base of tech. So because of that, as I said earlier, since I fast expanded, I feel completely fine sacrificing SCVs because I already have an SCV lead, and on top of that, oh, whoops, didn't mean to unpause there. It's going to be another minute before he has double orbital worth, or sorry, double command center worth of SCV production. That's not counting the time that it's going to take him to morph in the orbital. So even if I lose enough SCVs to drop with to fewer SCVs than my opponent has, he is still, sorry, I'm still going to be able to reproduce more quickly than him and still catch up and be even with him economically. So because of those two factors, I decided to pull a
Base
couple of
is under
SCVs
attack.
with my army. I only took 2 in this case since I felt that's all I needed. And I can use those SCVs to tank a little bit in order to help me win the battle. So you notice the first 2 Hellion shots went straight into the SCVs, and as a result barely hit these Marines at all. So do a
Research
little bit of
complete.
spreading, focus fire on the higher, sorry, higher priority targets, and then you end up cleaning pretty well. My opponent didn't focus fire as well, so I have a lot of weakened Marines, which is actually really good for me. So I held off his pressure timing, and now it's time to continue with the build. My factory is about to finish right away, and as a result I decided to get a third gas since I will be I get the third gas at this timing since I do expect to be doing a lot of stuff off of 2 bases. Considering how quickly he got his tech up, I don't expect to be taking a super fast third. So that's why I'm getting my third gas right now. Sometimes you can delay your third gas by a bit. Also, as I mentioned earlier, don't forget that stim timing. Start the starport right away, and we're going to
Additional
go for
supply depots
reactored
required.
medevacs here. Getting the reactor for the starport instead of getting the tech lab for the siege tanks, that all comes down to your preference based on the situation. Do you think you're going to need siege tanks right away, or don't you? Um, in this case, considering he went Marine Hellion, I don't think that I'm going to need siege tanks since the most common follow-up to that is an expansion. So I don't think that I need siege tanks right away. I can power up with my 2 medevacs being perfect support for my Marine-based army and upgrades-based army. Also, consider that it takes 50 seconds to build a reactor, um, and then after that you can flip the factory over and build the tech lab. So it takes about a minute and a half since the tech lab takes 35 seconds to build, I believe. It takes about a minute and a half in order to get between when you finish the factory and when you start your tank production, as opposed to just 35 seconds. So it's a little bit of a sacrifice, and you just have to judge it based on whether or not you're going to need the siege tanks during that minute. And make sure that you continue the supply depot production at the edge of your base. Since he had killed a supply depot earlier, I decided to pull one more SCV off of the line to get an extra supply depot right away, and then set it straight back to mining. Just in order for me to catch up in my supply depot production. Start your 2 medevacs right away. Plus 1 armor is going to finish. Stim is going to finish as well. Stim is probably going to finish while you're part way on the map, depending on what your situation is. So sometimes if you feel like you need to be a bit more defensive, you can just wait at your natural a bit longer and wait for Stim to be finished before you go on the map. Because some builds get Stim a bit faster. They do sacrifice economy and things like that and a bit of tech in order to get Stim and combat shields faster. So if you move out and Stim is 20 seconds away from finishing and he's already here, he might Stim, kill you, and win the game. In this case, I know that since he opened up Starport and Hellions, there's no way that he's going to have Stim and combat shields ready. And I also know that because he teched up so heavily, he's going to have to tech very specifically in order to hold off a Marine timing here. So I'm waiting for that prime opportunity, and then I'm going to go pressure him and see whether or not I can just go kill him. So right when you swap the starport with factory as well, you can get your tech lab right away. And then whether or not you produce siege tanks right away all comes down to your personal preference of when you want to build the siege tanks. Here is a moment in the build where I diverge very often based on how the game's going. I either start siege tank production right away, or often I'll get an armory and second engineering bay and keep pumping upgrades. If I feel it's going to be a marine versus marine type type game, then I'm often going to opt for the heavier upgrades, completely skip out on siege tanks and siege tech, though still having the factory ready there with the tech lab in case I ever need to start siege tank production, and also I'll get some more medevacs. Since after the first 2 medevacs, I might need to cut a bit depending on whether or not I get siege tech. So he's deciding just to be a little bit more annoying here, but that won't really matter since I'm going to kill it right away. Boom. There goes a medevac. So that was actually a bad idea by him. Unless he was planning on doing something else to distract me at the same time. Now that both medevacs are done, Stimpack is almost ready and on the way. I can just hard crew my entire army. So I've got 24, 26 Marines here and 2 medevacs. I'm going to have Stim, I have combat shields, and I'm going to have +1. Behind this aggression, you can do either, you can add 2 barracks right away, or you can get a quick third. In this game I decided to go for the quick third. I don't really have a good reason for deciding that. I just felt like getting a quick third was better. In most games, if my opponent opens up Marines, I like getting the 2 extra barracks first, since when you have a heavy Marine versus heavy Marine type game, having 10 extra Marines in that large battle can make you win the battle very convincingly and win the game very convincingly. So having a larger amount of Marines in the mid game is more important in those kinds of games. But in this game, I know that my opponent's going to be getting factory units right away since he already opened with the starport and Hellions, and I'm assuming that he might be going mech. Though, I mean, it all depends on how he follows up his build order. So for that reason, I decided to get the quick third in order for the stronger economy. Then as my army is moving across the map, make sure that you keep macroing. And since the timing is so very specific, I don't stop to check the watchtower or go check the other watchtower and things like that. I just quickly kill that SCV and then keep moving. So also, when I'm moving out with this attack, I was checking, you'll notice maybe at the bottom of the screen, while I was tabbing through my things, I was checking to make sure that I would have a scan ready. So boom, right there I saw that my scan would be ready right when I was about to attack. Perfect timing with the scan at 10:27. Spread out my Marines in advance. Don't stop moving. Scan right away. Now notice, okay, he's got a few Hellions. He doesn't have a bunker up, and he doesn't have siege mode. If he had, let's say, a bunker and 2 siege tanks behind it ready in siege mode, which does happen often depending on how he invests his money, he would be able to hold it off, in which case I would either opt to do a drop or just pull back and take up to a more Marine Marauder type game. Make sure that you keep macroing behind this, so keep your money low behind this. You'll notice my money's significantly lower than his. And I see a weakness, so I go. I I notice I didn't have stim. I think I forgot it by just a couple seconds when combat shields finished. So as a result, I hopped back quickly just to see how far away stim was. But considering the amount of weakness that he had in his defense, I knew that I could go in, start applying the pressure right away, and when the battle gets really hot, when he pulls SCVs or something like that, then I would have the opportunity to stim, since stim would be finished by then. Hop back, check stim, go back to the battle, move in closer, make sure that you're not choked in the ramp. Then you have guys in the back that aren't shooting. As soon as you move into the open like this, you're in a great position.
Research
Also make
complete.
sure that I made sure that I had a nice spread, a nice concave here. And as soon as he pulled his SCVs, I knew that my stim was ready. So I stim. We'll go back just a little bit, see how that went. So don't get choked up here. He pulled back in order to pull his SCVs to help him fight.
Research
I got the
complete.
concave going. Stim. And since his defensive position and his tech choice weren't the greatest based on my build, I win the game straight up right here. So the follow-ups to this build are pretty straightforward. Get the armory and the second engineering bay right away. Siege tank production is a selective thing. You can do it as you like it. I started siege tanks right away as soon as I saw that he was going mech. And yeah, you can go from there. You'll want to get your fourth gas around the same time that you're securing your third base. And yeah, there you go.